Alright, hi there. This is Mr. Pouts with your section 1.6 video. And you might notice that 1.6 is about products and quotients of real numbers. That's multiplying and dividing. So before you start taking notes, please make sure you write down the goal in your goal sheet and or on your notes where it says be able to find products and quotients of real numbers. Don't forget to keep writing down those goals and self-assess yourself about the goal. Alright, so I'll try to keep this video a little bit shorter than the last one since you've done multiplying and dividing before. But this is an important one. There's so much that we could do for multiplying and dividing. Real numbers with positives, negatives, fractions, decimals, even some stuff with exponents and square roots, but I'll try to keep it as basic as we can here, and we'll do more practice in class. So we're going to start off with this warm-up thing here. And I would actually like you to write this down. There's a little chart here at the bottom. I'll highlight here. That's this one right here. I would like you to copy this down and fill in the blanks, because this will help us just kind of see why things are the way they are. Because patterns tell us so much in math. A lot of stuff we get comes from patterns. So if we look here, we're doing multiplication. It says use the patterns to complete the table and answer the following questions. So if we complete the table here, we have 2 times 3, which you should know is 6. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 0, hopefully you either know that 2 times 0 is 0, or you can follow this pattern of going 6, 4, 2, going down to 0. We're still going down 2, so we're going to be negative 2 and negative 4. And truly, 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, and 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. Okay? Now we're going to start off with the top right, where we have a negative 2 times a positive 3. That is negative 6. Negative 2 times positive 2 is negative 4. Times positive 1 is negative 2. Times 0 would be 0. Keeping with that pattern, we should have positive 2 and positive 4. And those would be correct here. Now the question says, what is the sign of the product of a positive number and a negative number? So let's look. We have positive. Here's a section with a positive and a negative. Here's also a section with a positive and a negative. If you look there, all the answers, all the results are negative. So in other words, every time you multiply a positive by a negative, so I'll come to here and we can kind of fill this in if this would help. That would be looking at this one and this one. Anytime you have one positive and one negative, the result will be a negative. If you have a negative times a positive, your answer is still going to be a negative. So no matter the order, if you have one positive and one negative multiplied together, the answer is going to be negative. Now, second question is, what is the sign of the product of two negative numbers? Two negative numbers we have right here. They're both positive numbers. So if we have two negative numbers to multiply together, the negatives will cancel out. This only works for multiplication and division. But the negatives cancel out and become a positive result. Same thing if you have two positive answers, or two positive numbers multiplied together, you end up with a positive result as well. So if you look in here, we're going to fill in the blanks. A positive times a positive would be a positive. A negative times a negative would be a positive answer as well. So in other words, and I'm going to show you this chart here. In other words, multiplying real numbers, when the product of two real numbers with different signs, the answer is going to be negative. So you have examples here. 2 times negative 3. One is positive, one is negative. You get a negative 6. Or negative 2 times positive 3, you also get a negative 6. Okay? Now, I'll break this apart by the real examples and the model. If you'd like to use this model of a number line, that's up to you. Personally, it doesn't help me the best when I'm doing multiplication or division. But if you're saying that there's -3 and there's two of those because you're multiplying by 2, you have a -3 going back and you double that and go back 3 more and you end up with the result of -6. Um, you can show this with two positive numbers as well. So if you have the product of two real numbers with the same signs, so you have different signs, doesn't matter which one comes first. Same signs, the answer is going to be positive. So positive times a positive is a positive, and a negative times a negative is a positive as well. And here's an example. Positive 2 times 3. So there's two of those 3's this time. So positive 3, double that to get to positive 6. Okay? That's your key concept with multiplying integers, or multiplying real numbers. It doesn't have to be just integers, any real numbers. You'll get those results. So, we'll get to that in a sec. So, let's do a couple examples. Number 1, what do you think? Positive or negative answer? Well, hopefully you know right away this is going to be a negative answer because we have one of each. And then 5, so it's going to be negative. 5 times 6 is 30, so it's -30. All right, number 2, 7 times -2. Again, one positive, one negative. Doesn't matter the order. You have one of each, the answer is going to be negative. And what is 7 times 2? Well, that's 14. So -14 is your result there. All right, number 3, we have a negative times a negative. So same signs. When you have two of the same signs multiplied together, you end up with a positive result. And that's going to be positive 3 times 7 is 21. All right, last one. Okay, let's rewrite this. So we have, that'd be -5 times itself. All right, so we have same signs again. They're both negative, so we will end up with a positive result. 5 times 7 is 25. So there you go. Okay, that's just following those rules. If you have two numbers multiplied together and they're the same sign, you end up with a positive result. If they're different signs, you end up with a negative result. All right. Now, quotient or division. Follow the same rules when you're dividing two numbers. So let's pull this down and say, all right, well, what about division? So here's our key concept for division. The quotient of two real numbers with different signs is a negative. Just like two different signs with division, or sorry, multiplication is a negative. If you have two different signs for division, it is also a negative. So example, here's we have -20 divided by 5. So one is positive, one is negative. Our result is going to be negative. And 20 divided by 5 is 4. So -4. Same thing here, 20 divided by -5 would be -4. Now the quotient of two real numbers with the same signs we have here, that's going to be positive, just like with multiplication. So positive and positive, you get a positive result. 20 divided by 5 is 4. Negative and negative, you get a positive result as well. So -20 divided by -5 is a positive 4. So that way, it's like the negatives cancel out. Again, these rules only work for multiplication and division. We did addition and subtraction rules yesterday. So, and if you have a unique one where you'd have a 0 involved, it says the quotient of 0 and any non-zero real number is 0. So we have 0 divided by anything else is equal to 0. But if you have the quotient of any real number and 0, so if it's a real number divided by 0, that's undefined. You can't do it. Okay? So you can't divide something by 0. It's like saying you want to divide 8 people into 0 group. It's not possible. You can divide 0 people into 8 groups, because each group would just have 0 in it, but you can't divide 8 people into 0 groups. There has to be at least one group. So that is Not possible there. So let's do a couple practices with that. All right, number 5 says 81 divided by negative 9. We have one positive, one negative. So the answer is going to be negative. And we're going to have 81 divided by 9 is 9, because 9 times 9 gets 81. So we have negative 9. All right, 44 divided by negative 2. Again, one of each, so it's a negative result. I don't know why that's happening. So then we have negative 44 divided by 2 would be 22. All right, 12 divided by 6. Hopefully you can remember if you have two positives, the result is going to be positive. So 12 divided by 6 gets you 2. And number 8, you have two negatives, so you also get a positive result. It's like those two negatives cancel each other out. And 42 divided by 7 is positive 6. All right, so that is division. Now, I do want to know one more thing. I don't know that I have any practice with this, but we talked about the additive inverse yesterday, and that was when you add two opposite numbers, and that gets you to 0. Well, there's a thing called the multiplicative inverse. So this is dealing with multiplication. So let's read this. It says, for any non-zero real number, and we'll just say a for right now, there is a multiplicative inverse. So if you have a over 1, the multiplicative inverse is the reciprocal of that, 1 over a. And when you multiply them together, you get 1. So the multiplicative inverse of negative 4 or negative 4 over 1 would be negative 1 over 4. They're just flipped, and when you multiply them together, you get 1. So let's say you have 3/4. The multiplicative inverse, you multiply by the reciprocal, and you get, and just to show how you get 1, you get multiply across 12 over 12, and that is equal to 1. Same thing works with any kind of negatives. So if you have negative 1/2, multiply by 2 over negative 1, you end up with negative 2 over negative 2, which is equal to 1. So that's an interesting property there with the, it's called the multiplicative inverse. And if you're multiplying two reciprocals together, you'll always end up with a positive, or a positive 1 result. All right, let's do some more examples. I don't know if there's one like that, but there's some random examples that I have here. All right, so this is number 1, number 2, number 3 for right now. All right, go ahead and try those. You can pause the video and try those on your own. All right, so 8 times negative 4, it's going to end up being a negative result because you have one positive and one negative. And you have to know 8 times 4. Hopefully you know that's 32. Or you can do 4 8. So 8 times 4 would be 8, 16, 24, 32. That's where you get 32 from. All right. Ooh, I threw one in here that has multiplication and addition in it. Let's always do multiplication first. Negative times a negative is going to be a negative. So negative 64 plus 32. Okay, now picturing a number line might be good, might be really good, or using the absolute value method. You take the absolute value of each one and you subtract. So 64 minus 32 is going to be equal to 32. And since you have the bigger number is a negative, your result's going to be a negative. All right. All right, last one we've done multiplying and dividing fractions already together as a warm-up. So let's just multiply these two fractions together. I wanna just note, if you have a negative in front of a fraction, you can take that and you can pick. You can put it on the top or the bottom, but you can't put it on both. So you can say that's negative 3/4 times 1/2, or you can say it's 3 over negative 4. It's got to be one or the other. Because if you put it on both, then it'd be a negative divided by negative, which would actually be a positive fraction then. So put it by 1, and that'll make it a lot easier. And you can multiply straight across. Negative 3 times 1 would be a negative 3. Positive 4 times positive 2 would be a positive 8. And there you go. All right, so that is, let's see, I don't think I have, well, I do have one example. Let's do one real life example here. Uh-oh, I'm giving it away. But, so it says skydiving. A skydiver's elevation changes by negative 3,200 or 3,600 feet in 4 minutes. So, the 4 minutes after a skydiver jumps out of a plane, they'll be going 3,600 feet downward. That's after the parachute opens. What is the average change of the driver's um, skydiver, sorry, elevation each minute? So we've got it for 4 minutes. We're gonna figure the average per minute. So we're gonna divide it out. So we're gonna do that negative 36 and divide it by the 4 minutes. You actually get negative 900. So that means and here note that since there's different signs, the quotient is negative. And that means that the skydiver's average change in elevation is negative 900 per minute. Okay, so that's just a real life example of how this is applicable to you. And I know dividing, it's meant to be a big review for you, but sometimes we get tricked up when we have negatives involved. All right, so I hope this video is useful for you. Make sure you have the goal written down of being able to find products and quotients of real numbers. And if you have questions on any of these problems or any of these concepts, bring them to class. Until next time, we'll see you.